Wait a second. The guy in front of the camera looks the same, but the surroundings look different. Am I in the right place? Have I clicked the wrong link? Well, the guy in front of the camera is the same. I'm still Charles, and the surroundings are different. Because as many of you know, I'm involved in a number of different things. I teach courses in the Catholic faith every Saturday morning from 9 to 10:30 on the campus of St. Bonaventure High School. That's also the same location that I film the weekly gospel podcasts in. I also collaborate with a Catholic website, freshcatholic.com, where I film theology courses and Bible studies and podcasts for them, utilizing their studio. Well, their studio now has moved to this new location, which is where we are now. And for you Fresh Catholic viewers, from now on, this will be the new studio that I'll collaborate with them on. And for you weekly gospel podcast watchers, we're going to film this week's podcast and next week's podcast back to back in our new studio, kind of see how that goes. And then depending on that, we may stay here for the weekly gospel podcasts, or we may go back to our prior location at St. Bonaventure High School. So with all of that, this is our new studio. We're kind of testing it out for the first time. And for the Fresh Catholic viewers, there is a link to these weekly gospel podcasts on their website and on their YouTube channel. If you go to the area on the website or the YouTube channel where it has my biography, right at the bottom of the biography is a small link. You can click on that and get these weekly gospel podcasts as well. So that's why the person is the same, but the surroundings are different, and we thought we'd take a couple of minutes here to kind of bring you up to speed on some of these new changes. So with that, the next thing you'll see is our gospel podcast for the 5th Sunday of the Easter season. So hang tight for that. We'll be right back in a minute. From our new studio, with Max still behind the camera and me still in front of the camera, welcome to this week's weekly gospel podcast. It is the 5th Sunday of the Easter season. We will be in the Gospel of John, specifically John chapter 14, verses 1 to 12. And again, not a lengthy reading overly, but a number of different things going on, and our job today will be to kind of bring those things to the surface, shed some light on them, so when you do hear this gospel reading proclaimed on Sunday, that the verses will come alive to you in a way maybe they haven't done previously, and you'll have a better understanding of and appreciation for what the Word of God has for us. So again, this is John chapter 14, verses 1 to 12. Couple of reminder items. Whenever we're in the Gospel of John, we want to remind ourselves that John's purpose is to bring out the divinity of Christ. His purpose is to speak to and affirm the divinity of Christ, to speak to and affirm that Jesus is God. In fact, in chapter 20 of his gospel, he indicates exactly that. He says Jesus did many signs which are recorded here, but there are many others that he did that weren't recorded, but he's recorded these so that you might believe that Jesus is the Messiah, he is the Son of God, and believing in him you may have eternal life. So John's purpose in writing his gospel, again, is to speak to and affirm the divinity of Jesus and that Jesus is God. That's one thing we want to remember anytime we go into the Gospel of John. The second thing we want to remember, and I say this because we're going to be looking at a passage in John chapter 14, in the Gospel of John, specifically, anytime we're in chapters 13 to 17, that's what's called the upper room discourse. So from chapter 13 to chapter 17, anything we read in those chapters is happening on Holy Thursday night in the upper room on the eve of Christ's passion and death. So we want to keep those two things in mind anytime we look at any passage in chapters 13 to 17. We're in the Gospel of John. whose main purpose is to bring out that Jesus is God, and specifically we're in chapters 13 to 17, which is occurring in the upper room on Holy Thursday night on the eve of his passion and his death. So with that in place, we'll add in our couple of principles: context, 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 and read, watch, and listen closely because words have meaning. So fifth Sunday of Easter, John 14, verses 1 to 12. This is how John starts this passage. He says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled." Now again, he's in the upper room. It's Holy Thursday night. It's the eve of his passion. He's talking to his disciples. And he tells them, do not let your hearts be troubled. Now let me hit the pause button almost before we really hit the play button. Why is he telling them to let their hearts not be troubled? Well, if we go back, providing a little context, if we go back to the beginning of this upper room discourse, if we go back to when they entered the upper room on that Holy Thursday night, chapter 13, in addition to Jesus washing the disciples' feet, okay, we find out Jesus telling his disciples a couple of things that are going to rock their world, okay? Three things in particular we pick up in chapter 13 prior to the beginning of chapter 14 where our gospel passage picks up. So what three things has Jesus just told his disciples that preceded him telling them now, don't let your hearts be troubled? Number one, he has just indicated to them that one of them would betray them. Now, if you're one of the disciples and you're reclined at table in that upper room, and you hear, A, that Jesus is going to be betrayed, period, that's going to shock you. And to learn that he's going to be betrayed by one of the people in that room, that's really going to shock you, okay? So that's one thing he tells them that kind of rocks their world, that he's going to be betrayed, and he's going to be betrayed by one of them. And then eventually he'll indicate that one of them is Judas. Now, a second thing he tells them, and I'll go ahead and read his exact words. He says, "My children, I will be with you only a little while longer. You will look for me, and as I told the Jews, where I go, you cannot come. So now I say it to you." So he's just told them he's going to be betrayed, and it's going to be done by one of them. Then he tells them he's about to go away, and where he's going, they cannot come. Now again, if you're one of the disciples, you've been with Jesus 24/7 for the last 3 years, okay? Now all of a sudden, he's telling you he's going to leave. And that's got to rock your world. Number one, he's telling you that he's going to leave shortly, and that where he's going, you cannot come. The third thing he tells him, and again, we'll look at the exact words, okay? Simon Peter picks up on this. He says, "Master, where are you going?" And Jesus answers. He says, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, though you will follow later." So again, let's set the context. It's Holy Thursday night. You're in the upper room, okay? Jesus, you're reclining at table. Jesus has just told you he's going to be betrayed, and it's going to be by one of them. He's also told you that he's going to be leaving you in a little while, and you cannot follow him. And then he reiterated the fact that he's going to be leaving, and they cannot follow him, but they will later on. So if you're one of the disciples who's been with Jesus 24/7 for the last 3 years, and you hear these three things, your mind has to be swimming, okay? Your world has to be rocked. It's in that vein that chapter 14 opens up, and Jesus in essence is saying, okay, given all that I've just said to you, don't let your hearts be troubled, okay? Now, so that's why he says that at this particular time. Now, let's continue on with the narrative in chapter 14. "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe in me also." Now, we indicated that John's purpose in his gospel was to indicate that Jesus is God. And a number of times in the upper room discourse, in a number of different ways, Jesus hammers home the point to his disciples and by extension to us that he is God. Okay? Let me, just in this chapter alone, let's take a look at all of the different times Jesus reiterates that he's God. Okay? This is the first time. Believe in God, believe in me also. Why? Because I am God. Okay, that's one instance. Now let's do a second instance. Okay, he says, if you know me, then you will also know my Father. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. So if you know me, you'll know the Father. Because if you've seen me, you've seen him. Jesus is God. Let's go to a third one. Whoever has seen me has seen the Father. That's the third instance, just in this one setting, that he's hammering home the point that he's God. The fourth one, do you believe in me? Or do you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? I am in the Father's in me, I am God. Here's a fifth time. The Father who dwells in me is doing his work. Believe in me that I am the Father and the Father is in me. So I am in the Father's in me, I'm doing the Father's work, I am God. So you can see that just in these short verses, Jesus 5 separate times is hammering home the point that he is God. And going back to where this passage starts, despite all the things that Jesus has just told his disciples, he's now told them, despite all of that, let your hearts not be troubled. You believe in God, right? Well, believe in me. Why? Because I am God. And because I am God, that's why your hearts should not be troubled. So that's kind of what precedes verse number 1 of this passage. And verse number 1 of this passage is the first of 5 times in the passage that Jesus indicates to his disciples that he is God. Okay? Because he knows what's about to happen. He knows that the next day he's going to be, that evening he's going to be put on trial by the Jewish religious leaders. He's going to be put on trial by the Roman authorities, Pilate. He's going to be scourged. He's going to be crucified, all right? He knows that's going to happen, and he knows that in very short order, his disciples are going to witness all of this, okay? And what he wants them to have in the back of their minds is, despite what your human eyes are seeing, despite what looks like a horrible defeat, remember, I am God. And despite everything I've just told you, despite everything that's going to happen to me over the course of the next few hours, so to speak, don't let your hearts be troubled. So that's the whole basis for how he begins this chapter 14. Okay? Now, he then goes on to say that he's going to go away, okay, but he's going to come back, all right? And where he's going, there's going to be many, and depending on what translation of the Bible you have, there's going to be many mansions. There's going to be many places. There's going to be many dwelling places. That he's going to go away, that he's going to come back, and he's going to take them with him. Okay? Now, the whole business of mansions and dwelling places, just him using the word dwelling places, that, the word dwelling indicates a sense of permanence. So he's going away, yes, but he's coming back and he's going to take them with them and they're going to dwell with him. And since the word dwelling connotates a permanence, that they're going to be permanently with him, okay? They're going to be without him for a little while, but then after that, they're going to be permanently with him, and we know where that's going to be. It's going to be in heaven. So that word mansions or dwelling places connotes a sense of permanence, all right? Now, this is interesting also because in phrasing it this way, Jesus is actually kind of phrasing it and reminding them of a situation which they would be very familiar with. Because the phrasing he's using in going away, coming back, preparing a place, getting them and bringing them back to that place, they'd hear this and their minds would go back to the traditional Jewish wedding scenario. Because what would happen is, the groom and the bride, okay, they would get betrothed. And that betrothal period would last roughly a year. During that time, the bride would still be living at her parents' house. The groom would be living at his parents' house. But what the groom would be doing during that year is he would be building their future home. Okay? He would be building their future dwelling place. Then, once that's prepared, he would come to the bride's parents' home, collect the bride, and bring the bride back to the home he had prepared, to the dwelling he had prepared, and that's where they would consummate the marriage, and that's where they would live out their married life. So this business of preparing a place, going and getting them and bringing them back to that place, when they heard Jesus talking in that kind of terminology and phrasing it that way, in the back of their minds, they would be envisioning a Jewish wedding. Okay? So he's telling them what he's going to do, and he's phrasing it in such a way that they'll be able to understand. That just like the groom prepared a dwelling place for his bride while they were separated, and then came and got the bride and brought them back to the dwelling place where they would dwell forever, right? Same thing that's going to go on here. Jesus is going to leave them for a period of time. He's going to prepare a dwelling place for them. He's going to come back to them, bring them back, and that's where they'll dwell forever. So he's trying to put in their minds that scene so that they can kind of understand what he's talking about. So when we get to that point in the passage, kind of bring that to the surface as you hear those verses. Now, going on a little bit further, okay, one of the things that he says in here is he says, I and the Father, as I indicated earlier, the Father is in me, I'm in the Father. The Father and I are one. You've seen me, you've seen the Father, okay? For the Jewish people, the Father was everything, right? And he's trying to convince his disciples that, I'm God. You've seen me, you've seen the Father. So again, because the Father was everything to the Jewish people, and because Jesus is linking himself up with the Father, because Jesus is God, that's another way he has of allaying the fears of these disciples that, in a little while he's going to go and they cannot come. Now, the other thing I should mention, okay, is keep in mind the context. If you're one of the disciples, all right, the main thrust of what Jesus is trying to get to in these first 12 verses is, yes, I'm going to be betrayed. Yes, I'm going to go away. No, you can't come with me right now. And you're going to be experiencing some things that look like a defeat. But don't let your hearts be troubled, because above and beyond it all, I'm God. And even though I'm going away for a short time, kind of remember the Jewish wedding scenario, you disciples, okay? I'm preparing a place for you. I'm going to come back for you. I'm going to bring you with me, and we'll dwell there forever. Yet one more additional thing I should talk about, since I still have you here, is it's within these 12 verses that Jesus utters one of his famous I am sayings. In this particular case, it's I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Couple of things we want to say about what Jesus says here. I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. Emphasis on the word the. Not a way, a truth, or a life. The way, the truth, and the life. Okay? There's only, there's only one way. There's only one truth, right? That there's not several different truths. Truths is not subjective. There is objective truth. And that objective truth is not a what, it's a who. And it's Jesus. Recall back to the Passion narrative you heard on Good Friday, where Pilate and Jesus are having their exchange. And at what point during that exchange, Jesus says that I have come into the world to bear witness to the truth. And this is where Pilate says one of several of his famous sayings. He says, what is truth? And of course, the irony is when Pilate says, what is truth? Truth is standing right before him. He's speaking to the truth because the truth is a person, and that person is Jesus. So the way, the truth, the life, not a way, a truth, or a life. And then the other thing I should mention is when he indicates no one comes to the Father except through me. Okay? Now, when he says, I want to kind of camp on the word through. No one comes to the Father except through me. Now, the Greek word he uses for through, okay, can be translated on account of or by reason of. So you can kind of, if you look at the word through in that vein, no one comes to the Father except on account of me. No one comes to the Father except by reason of me. Okay? And why is that the case? Because, again, what is Jesus' passion, death, and resurrection going to do, right? It's going to reopen the gates of heaven. It's going to reopen access to the Father. So what Jesus is about to do, and remember, he's saying this to his disciples, right? What Jesus is about to do in his passion and death and resurrection is reopen access to the Father. It's because, it's using our language, it's on account of his passion, death, and resurrection. It's by reason of his passion, death, and resurrection that they have regained access to the Father. So when Jesus says, no one comes to the Father except through me, when you hear that word through, if you can sub in on account of or by reason of, what Jesus is saying is that on account of what I'm about to do, my passion, death, and resurrection, on account of what I'm about to do, by reason of what I'm about to do, and what it's going to result in, reopening the gates of heaven and opening access to the Father, that's why Jesus can make the statement, no one comes to the Father except through him. Because it's by reason of what he's going to do and on account of what he's going to do that they're going to gain access to the Father in the first place. So I wanted to kind of say those few words about that particular I am statement that we find in these verses. So with that, we'll wrap up this podcast. And until the 6th Sunday of Easter, again with Max behind the camera, me in front of the camera, and in our new studios, take care and God bless.